I gotta use fucking pain suppression on you, dude. I don't want to. I'm not gonna do it. Oh my god, there's a dragon behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, Legion Alpha, and we are looking at the Discipline Priest. Many people were shocked and or thought I was trolling when asked on Twitter what is currently my favourite spec of Alpha. And my reply was, the Disc Priest, which is why I moved it up in the priority. And people were like, bullshit, Breacher, you're not a healer. No, but I tell you what, the gameplay that comes with this thing is so unique, so original, and working so well that I absolutely love it. I love it so much. It's a little bit more difficult than what people might be used to, especially in comparison to the way the other healers are right now. If you look at the Resto Druid and the Mistweaver, which have actually been simplified down from their current WoD incarnations, then this thing comes along and says, you know what? This is something for those guys who like a little bit of meat on their fucking dinner. They don't just want the vegetables that are easy to swallow. They want some nice chewy beef to go along with it. And there's definitely some concerns to be raised from that. And whether or not Blizzard will stick to this design is something that we'll talk about later in the video. This video will be in two parts. There's links up at the top. I'm going to do a brief overview here, but obviously I can't really heal here. So I'm then going to add on a dungeon at the end, but I will warn you before that happens for people who want to avoid spoilers of what the dungeons look like. I know those guys are out there, so you'll get a fair warning before that happens. Why is this unique and why is it original? Original might not be the right word. They attempted something like this in the past. Atonement and the fact that Disc Priest could DPS in order to heal is no new idea. It came to prominence in Kata. It was the rounding mop, but less so. And in WoD, they essentially gutted it down to being a non-existent factor of the Disc Priest. And what they've done now is said, fuck that. Let's do it as an entire process. And what you'll notice on my bars is that in terms of healing people without doing damage, I have very limited options. I have Plea, which is an instant cast, very cheap heal that heals for bog all, 15k heal on a 310k target, lol lol lol. And of course, Holy Word Radiance, or Power Word Radiance, you can see where they got the name from, which is your AoE, okay? And your AoE heal, which heals 5 targets, is less than a Plea. Okay, so that's what you have to deal with. And yes, it is a pain in the ass, like in a 5-man dungeon, in between packs, trying to top the group off. That's a real pain in the ass, because this entire spec is designed around being in combat and DPSing in order to achieve its results. So, how does it do that? It does that by, one, you have to manage your Atonement. Atonement is now a buff. It's a buff that you intentionally apply to targets, okay? You will purposely put Atonement on them, and you'll do that in several ways. Your Plea applies Atonement. There it is. It applies it for like 14 seconds, and your Holy Word Radiance does that. As I click off Atonement, Holy Word Radiance does it to 5 targets, but for half duration. You can see it lasts 7 seconds that time. And of course, your Power Word Shield applies it, and you get the full duration from Power Word Shield. Now, you will definitely... They've made steps to ensure that the Disc Priest does not fall into the traps that it fell into in previous expansions. Certainly not being a bubble spammer. Power Word Shield has a 6-second cooldown, which means you have to make choices, and this is what really started to open my eyes to this spec. For the first time in a long time while playing a healer, I had to make interesting choices that could save or cost someone their lives. In general, you might say things like, Power Word Shield should always go on the tank, right? There's no weakened soul now, so you can just apply it as soon as Power Word Shield is off cooldown. But what about if your DPSer is on seriously low health and your tank's on half health? This is where you start looking at the scenario, the environment, what's about to happen. Can I afford to not put the shield on the tank? Can I afford to put the shield on the DPS? Can I afford to let that DPS linger at low health for a few seconds while I do some DPS in order to heal him? Do I need to do some other form of decision making? And I had this moment where I was like, this is what WoW was for me for a very long time, is no set in stone rotations, no set priorities such as, oh, X amount of targets have taken damage, then I wild growth. And that sort of fixed ruling that came along with most healing classes, and in fact worked similar with most DPS classes for a really long time. The Disc Priest is unable to work that way. You have to make different choices all the time, and experience is a key thing. Going into my first dungeon, I entered with so much trepidation. I didn't know how much healing my Atonement was going to put out. I had seen various instances where it simply didn't put out enough healing, like it was a Draenor and Mists of Pandaria. It just wasn't enough until I seriously overgeared it. So then I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. And combined with the fact that I just didn't have a fucking clue what to do because I hadn't healed anybody before, I had a really tough time. Didn't let anybody die, but I had a really tough time through the first half of the instance. Then started to get things to click together. And then ultimately what I've ended up doing, and this is not a lie, is I created the Disc Priest. I had to delete it. I then had to make a Shadow Priest to do some stuff on that, which will be coming out soonish. Then I remade my Disc Priest just for fun. Just for fun. So overall, I've made about 12 hours on this and purely through dungeons. Purely through dungeons. So we've played this quite a bit, and it's been the only spec so far in Legion, besides the Fury Warriors old incarnation, that I have played just for fun because I enjoy the shit out of it. So let's get into some more details. So you're obviously going to have one half of your gameplay, which is managing atonement. If you don't have that atonement buff on targets, right, like that, then they will never get any healing from you. Not a drop of it. So you have to manage this very carefully. You'll have to make decisions on whether you want to put up a single plea or whether you want to put up lots of pleas through your Power Word Radiance for a short burst period, okay? You have to think about what the fight's doing. How do we generate actual healing then? But you have to sort of rethink what these spells do. Now, at the moment, I have Purge the Wicked. Ordinarily, this is Shadow Word Pain, which is a dot. But what you really need to think of this as is Renew. That's what it is. If I was to put a shield on our friend here and then apply Purge the Wicked, you'll see he starts getting Renew heals. You can see it ticking over his head there. That's all based on this. It's ticking on him. Now, the great thing about this is you can spread this, which is one of the... I'm talking a bit early about talent here, but if I spread this to other targets and give him Atonement again, you'll see that he starts getting double Renew. See the way it's double ticking now? Because it's ticking for various targets. Wonderful design. This scales so well with the amount of mobs you're dealing with. Such clever design. Spreading around your dot damage means that there's more overall tick healing going on people. Really cool. Penance, which is still around, you'll still recognize most of these spells, but they just work differently. So Penance, by default, cannot be cast on other people. Penance is your most efficient single target heal. If I put Penance on our tank here and then a shield, Atonement, you'll see that he gets a nice chunky amount of heal. Okay? And it costs basically nothing. It's 4,000 mana. You can cast it while moving, which is absolutely fantastic. Mobility on the Disc Priest is great. Between Plea and Penance and refreshing dots and Power Word Shield, you have plenty of things to be doing on the move. Then we have Smite and Mind Blast. Now, Smite and Mind Blast are basically heal, which is your fast, efficient heal, which would be Smite, and your more expensive heal in the form of Mind Blast, which is same amount of speed, yeah? 1.17 second cast and 1.56 second cast, but heals for more, but costs more. So that's how you have to think of these spells. You think of your dots as hots, and you think of Smite and Mind Blast as heal, and sort of Greater Heal or Flash Heal, if you want to think of it that way, with Penance being the most effective heal along the way. But that's not our only choices either. We have Shadow Mend. If the Disc Priest decides to dip into the Shadow schools, there's some drawbacks to that. So Shadow Mend is a reasonable cost, very fast cast, and with a very big heal on it. But it will then create an Absorb shield for healing. Alright? So 50% of the healing you do with Shadow Mend then creates an Absorb heal. You can see there. See? Shadow Mend losing temporary health per 1 second, alright? So you can see the way that works there. This Absorb shield is created on them. Still creates Atonement, so you can still get the backup healing from there. But it comes with this sort of drawback, and we'll see that evidenced in the talents as well. Cooldowns. Rapture is now a cooldown where your shield can be spammed for 8 seconds. This is really good in some respects and sort of not quite fitting the mark in other respects. Because you need to Atonement an entire group in order to benefit from their healing, or benefit from your DPS in terms of their healing. Getting Atonement up on people is something you have to manage quite a lot. So you could do that with Plea, or you could Power Word Shield them to get them. So you could do sort of Power Word Shield on the tank and then Plea 4 targets to get a longer duration Atonement than you would with Holy Word Power Word Radiance, which is a very expensive cast. You can see that 11,000 mana. Or you could do something like Rapture and shield everybody. For this really emphasizes the best thing ever about Disc Priests is that they are predictive. They are preemptive. They have to be ready before the damage. And this is so much more the case now than it ever has been in the past, that it makes so much sense that it falls into this category. And it's not just because it's Absorbs. Previously, you had to play that way because your Absorbs would do nothing if you weren't ready for anything. You're far more of a raw healer now, and you still have to set it up. Instead of setting Absorbs up, you have to set up the Atonement, so when you do heal, people will actually get healed. It's no good taking huge amounts of damage and then being like, oh shit, I need to put atonement on people, because you'll fall into the trap of just spamming Power Word Radiance and then trying to burst in that 7-second window and then reapplying it. Suddenly you're dropping mana like a bitch. If you start pre-planning it, you can do it in great ways. So Rapture does two things. One, you can press it and shield the whole group, or shield as many people as you can in 8 seconds. Or, because of No Weakened Soul, you can do this. Pop Rapture, you can spam bubble one target over and over and over again. Yeah? This is a very powerful tank cooldown. A hugely powerful tank cooldown. It's so cool when it works that way, and I absolutely adore that Rapture gives you the ability to choose how you use it. This cooldown seems very simple, and it is, and that simplicity gives it so many more options to be useful. I absolutely love that design. Again, just love so many things about this thing. Some drawbacks then. Things like Light's Wrath seem drastically underwhelming so far. The idea of Light's Wrath is everybody who has Atonement will fire a bolt at the target, making this big burst damage, which should then give you some burst healing. Unfortunately, compared to some of our other choices, it doesn't seem to map out. So I'll show you what it does here. This is your artifact weapon skill. If I Power Word Radiance, which should give Atonement to everybody near me, and then Light's Wrath the target, you'll see the bolts, bum, 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 but it only hits for like 15k. It's just not a great deal of healing, unfortunately. It's alright. It'll work better in raids. The more people, you've got to remember with this thing, the more people who have Atonement, the more people benefit from Light's Wrath. It's just, it could be nicer if it was slightly more powerful or scaled a bit better. On the point of scaling, what I've noticed, the incredible thing about the Disc Priest is that your healing that comes from your damage is absolutely not hindered by how many targets have Atonement. So if I just have Atonement on one guy and I'm Mind Blasting and dotting and stuff like that, then they will get, you know, a decent chunk of healing. You can see 10Ks, 10Ks, 12Ks, blah, 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 blah. But if I was to have this on 20 people, they'll all get 10K. Yeah? They'll all get it because it's naturally balanced by the fact that Atonement doesn't last very long. So they've naturally balanced it that way. So you can't, like, Atonement an entire raid and just put out lol healing. That doesn't work. You have to manage it correctly, which means they can be quite liberal with not downsizing how much healing comes out of this. So, we still have Power Word Barrier. That is still around. I showed that at the beginning of the video. We still have Pain Suppression. You still have Shadow Fiend. Alright, you still have all these things. I will get into the talents momentarily. You still have Offensive Dispel and, of course, Friendly Dispel to go along with that. What I will say, some potential drawbacks to this. One, you put out a significant amount of damage. The current weight is 50% of your damage goes into healing. That means that the Disc Priest potentially will just be overwhelmingly better in a lot of scenarios. Right? Give a couple of backup healers to pick up the slack, especially when it's raid-wide healing. But for challenge modes and stuff, I truly, truly worry about how powerful Disc Priests are going to be compared to every other healer so far that we've seen. Not all the healers are available so far in the alpha. As to how powerful they will be in that setting when they're putting out so much damage. And they put out a lot of damage. And you can even turn it up to do more AoE damage and such. That will be a definite concern of mine. Another one that's more of a concern is right now, mana is not a deal for the Disc Priest. I'm hoping and praying that's actually a decision by Blizzard intentionally. And I say that because a Disc Priest right now has a lot to manage without really having to worry about mana on top of things as a big concern. It will be a concern if you just go derp, spam Power Word Radiance and like churning out like 20,000 mana every few seconds. That would be a real pain in the ass to do that. But if you play reasonably normally, it's not an issue. And I hope that's intentional. I really hope that's intentional because there's plenty of management in terms of managing various atonements across various people and also managing a DPS rotation on top of that. I think that is more than enough stuff to manage to keep this spec from feeling overwhelming. Now, I say that as I've tanked, healed, and DPS'd every single dungeon in preparation for those videos. When I'm playing my tanks, if a Disc Priest comes in who absolutely just doesn't get this, right? Because you have to be doing damage in order to really heal everybody while managing atonements. If they don't get it, and they're trying to do, like, spam plea, yeah, I get a lot of Disc Priests who are like, spam plea, and then trying to manage a group scenario, so they go, oh, Power Word Radiance, and spam. Trying to play it as if this was, like, Flash Heal and Prayer of Healing, then you just notice straight away that you're in fucking trouble, because you can't keep a tank alive in an ordinary scenario, unless it's a really good tank, by using these kinds of heals. I could give an example of that in the last fight of the Vault of Wardens. There's a mechanic there involving light and exposing the boss. Now, if somebody dies, the encounter currently doesn't give you another way of gaining light. If someone picks up the light and dies, which happens because of there's a certain mechanic there from Karazhan, which makes it return, which is fantastic. If they die, then you don't have the ability to find the light. And what happens is the boss continues to fight the tank, even though it's invisible. And I was spamming. I mean, fucking spamming. I was doing power infusion spams and Shadow Mends and trying to, spam plea on this guy, doing all these kind of things, and he was just dying. There was nothing I could do about it. He was taking damage from other sources, blah, blah, blah. You get a 50% damage taken debuff in that scenario. Without being able to DPS, I could not keep the tank alive. And that was with just spanning the very few abilities I have in order to do that, right? So, yeah, you're not designed to try and straight up heal. And people are really struggling with this idea that, oh, I don't just press bubble and kind of top people off in the meantime. I just cast penance every now and again. It's very, very different. Some things I'm sad are missing are things like Archangel. Loved Archangel. Would love to see that make a return, and there's plenty of space for that to return. If I was to give class feedback, which Blizzard is after now, because of the lack of mana issues, I would love Smite to do something a little extra. Extending the duration of Atonement on one target would be fine. That would be fine. Right now, generally speaking, there is absolutely no reason to cast Smite. None at all. Your mana is not an issue to the point where Mind Blast is just your go-to heal. Mind Blast and Penance. And also through the ability Revelation, which I'll show you here, Smite and Mind Blast have a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Penance. So, I would like Smite to be taken off the Revelation list and add Smite extend the duration of Atonement on the current target up to a maximum of its full duration, right? So up to a maximum of 14 seconds. Nothing else, but just to give Smite a reason to be casted in periods of low damage, because ultimately you're just wasting DPS, which is a factor you have to consider now in a Disc Priest. I would certainly like to see more iteration on the older relic spells like Halo. We'll get into the talents now, I think, and it's a good point to show these, as they just feel like superfluous these days compared to the other choices we have. If I want to put out big group healing, like really bursty healing, what I could do is things like Power Infuse, Power Word Radiance, Penance, spam Mind Blast, and make sure my dot's up, which would already be. You can see the resets coming here. And I could put out an absolutely tremendous amount of that. Now, Smite has no place in this. It really doesn't. So if Smite could in some way affect the atonement of a single target or the closest target, just keep refreshing those atonements for a while until the burst happens. And I say that because you'll be setting up these atonement windows where everybody has atonement because you know big damage is coming and it's wearing down. So if you're like a couple of seconds early, Smite could be a nice offset to keep those atonements ticking while you're waiting for that big burst where you want to start channeling in some penances and stuff, all right? So those are my current feedbacks. Realistically speaking, it needs some very, very minor changes to be super cool. I haven't tested it in a raid, which could be a very different story. So I want to point that out to you now. Let's look at the talents then. The Penitent. So again, I would like this talent to be removed, honestly, where Penance can be cast on a friendly target. Again, some people are falling on the crutch of Plea and Power of Radiance. And I've got to be honest, Plea spam can be reasonably effective, and it's not supposed to be. Although there's a fine balance to be drawn where these spells aren't just so useless you never cast them, yeah, in comparison to the other spells, or being too powerful that it's better to cast these than to do DPS. So they have to be real careful with that line. So Penitent being cast on Penance being cast on a friendly target, I think we could do without that. But again, it comes down to situations where you can't DPS, so PvP has to be a factor there as well, I'm sure. Castigation. It could be a PvP talent for that scenario now I'm thinking about it. Castigation. Penance fires an additional bolt. Love that. Penance is super cool. We're going to get a lot of Penance resets. Really like that. Or you can actually go with Schism, which gives you this burst at the end of your Penance, doing a little bit more damage and getting this sort of burst ending. Almost like a Life Bloomy effect, but not as powerful, which is cool. Especially if you're doing 5-man dungeons. Really like this. This is my go-to 5-man. Movement speed increases as normal. This is your CC tree, nothing much to mention there. I would mention Dominant Mind is super cool. Using this all the time in dungeons, you'll literally mind control an enemy, and instead of you becoming that enemy, you keep control of your character, you just gain a pet, essentially, which will run around and do DPS for you. Love that. Powered Solace Remains. Now, the only reason I've not played with this too much is because we have a lot of micro things to manage, like penance resets, tracking dots, Mindbender, all these little things to be keeping an eye on. And honestly, without telling me when, adding more on top of like Powered Shields cooldown to track and all this kind of stuff is a little bit of a pain in the ass to get the most out of Powered Solace. But you know Powered Solace, you don't need me to say much there. Shield displays the old Rapture. If your shield is used, you'll be refunded 1% of your maximum mana. Or Mindbender, which again, it's not really, there's no real mana issues on the Disc Priest right now. So Mindbender is more than enough. A 1 minute cooldown to keep track of on this ludicrously bad UI. Contrition. This is how we can start increasing our healing. So your atonement duration is increased by 5 seconds. Probably very, very cool in Rage. Did not need it in 5-mans. Power Infusion is my go-to for this. Not really for the mana reduction, but for the 25% haste. This opens up an on-demand cooldown window for when I can churn out huge amounts of healing. And I love that. It lasts 20 seconds, which means I get a sustained period of time where I can just be putting out huge amounts of healing. You've got to remember with the style of the Disc Priest now, Bloodlust is very, very effective for the Disc Priest in 2 ways. A huge increase in damage and a huge increase in healing out at the same time instead of one or the other. Twist of Fate, as you know what it does. No worries, I'm sure it'll be there. I hope this gets removed. This entire tree needs rework. This entire line needs reworking, in my opinion. Clarity of Will. I would really hate if the Disc Priest falls into a Clarity of Will playstyle. With the current design of Rapture, I don't think Clarity of Will is something necessary. And I just dread that people will be using Clarity of Will as like a spammable ability over all these other cool options that you have. You have this whole array, and I just don't want Clarity of Will to replace that as something worth doing. Divide Star just seems ludicrously ineffective compared to like a Penance or even a Mind Blast. And Halo just doesn't do enough considering its cooldown and mana cost. It puts out a decent amount of healing. It's like 100k at 110, which is our scaling in dungeons. But compared to what the rest of the scaling, it just doesn't seem worth in my eyes. It's okay, but it doesn't do enough. It doesn't do enough. I would like this to be entirely changed into something different. These could be holy, no problem. Maybe not Clarity of Will, but Clarity of Will is fuck boring anyway, so whatever. Level 100 then, Purge the Wicked. This is what I talked about earlier and what I use. It's replaces your Shadow of Pain. It's basically Holy Fire, but you can see there the mechanic is it spreads to additional nearby targets when you cast Penance on a target, which you will be doing. Yeah, so when I cast Penance, you can see it's trying to spread to there, and it spreads to there. And that just means that when you get a big AoE pull, you can pick the strongest enemy there, or the main target, drop on your Holy Fire or Purge the Wicked. I'm going to call it Holy Fire for the rest of time. And then Penance that target, and boom, everything got dots. And it doesn't matter how big the pack is, you'll start getting lots of renewed heal ticking on people. Grace, increase your non-atonement healing and absorption by 30% on attacks with atonement. I've seen lots and lots of people who don't get this spec pick up Grace, which means they're kind of shielding it to put atonement up, and then they're like spamming plea, you know, over and over and over and over again, just because of Grace, which I really don't like. Shadow Covenant is not something I've really played with. This seems more raid-based to me, where there's lots of other healers who are putting out sort of over-healing and stuff like that. If you're paired up with all sorts of other healers, this would make more sense. You draw the power of Shadow to heal 5 injured allies within 30 yards for a good amount. This is really cool at level 110, but it leaves a shell on them absorbing 50%, so it works the same as Shadow Men, but for group. If you've got lots of people putting out passive healing, that might not be a big deal, and it might actually save some lives. It's just not something I particularly choose for the stuff we're going to be doing. Right, so that's how this thing plays. It's super fun. It's going to be definitely not a spec you want if you want an easy life. If you want a really easy life with simple options, which is purely fine in my eyes, then yeah, this Disc Priest in the current design probably isn't for you. If you like the potential to open huge doors for greatness, the Disc Priest has got those options. It is not bound by the laws other than the duration of atonement, and good planning can actually get you out of those doors and open it up to some tremendous burst and tremendous output and possibly some life-saving moments, but you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to work for it. So in a world where a lot of classes are being dumbed down, the Disc Priest seems to be standing tall and saying, well, here's the one for the guys who want to do that. Now, obviously the question is there, where will the balance be? If it's a case of a Disc Priest has to work its arse off to put out the same as somebody who just has to press a few buttons and never has to worry about managing all these things, then it's unlikely to see its joy and may fall into that Clarity of Will nightmare once again. The balance will be difficult to achieve. The risk-reward is always a thing. If you're not good with this, you might just get trampled on continuously if you're not managing to fit into the idea of this, which many Disc Priests are not. That is another concern of mine. A lot of people don't like it if they work really hard to get good results, and even playing their best, they're just about equal with the guy who is doing something so much simpler. So that's something to bear in mind there as well. The Disc Priest, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'm going to jump into a dungeon. For those of you who don't want spoilers, please minimize, or in fact just turn off the video and enjoy the rest of your day. For the rest of us, stick around. We're going to head into a dungeon. I'm not sure which, but we'll have some fun in there anyway. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the Halls of Valor. Thank you for sticking with me if you don't mind some spoilers. We are going to do the Halls of Valor. Now, hopefully this is going to go well. I suppose I should put this sort of warning before anything we do in here. We're going to use a Demon Hunter tank.
Noble champions to enter my realm. Behold, the Halls of Valor.
Sorry, that's the first time I've heard that voice acting. Oh, he's still going.
And if you are found worthy, the Aegis of Agramar will be yours.
Bear with me. We're already taking some derpy damage here, which is nice. Shield on that guy. Let's try and get some Mind Blasts in. Oh, dear. Yeah, so, something to bear in mind here is that a lot of people playing classes they've never played in their entire lives, which is always fun. They're trying them out for the very first time. And they tend to either be really good, or really bad, or something in between. So that's something I'll bear in mind. Now, you can see that... So what we're looking for here is generally people who take a lot of damage, or people who don't notice they're covered in a debuff, and then don't realise that maybe they should move the fuck out with that debuff, because it's a giant lightning. But, you know, whatever. We got this. Oh, spikes. Spiky. Spiky. So this is going to... I can tell you already now this is going to be dangerous ball. So what am I doing? I'm going to be putting up, of course, Purge the Wicked. Now, I know that I'm going to call that Holy Fire throughout most of this dungeon. I'm actually going to preemptively put on a... Yeah, there we go. Here's the damage I was expecting. So we're going to have to be a little bit hamburgers here. Now, the way I'm going to be hamburgers is, in fact, putting on... using my... I'm going to have to use my Holy Word Radiance to get Atonement on everybody and see if we can sort something out here. So I'm going to have to pop Rapture here and spam shield our tank and spam shield you and spam shield you. Which is why Rapture is such a badass spell. Put Purge the Wicked back up, refresh that. Dude, you are spiking so hard! Stop! Stop! Jesus! Now, this is always bummer, is actually refreshing the party. I did point this out in the video. It's like refreshing the party, like zero fucks given by our man here. I'm going! I got something to prove! Okay. Let's get our Mindbender going. Let's put some long-term atonements on these guys, because we're going to be topping them up over the next few seconds. And this is what I'm talking about with the choices we're making here, yeah? It's about figuring out exactly... Do we have time to do that, or do I need to do, like, Holy Word Radiance spam? Or do I have time to sort of take it a little bit easier, refresh the shield on him? I could just put a simple atonement on myself, and I'm not really worried about myself, although this is getting a little hairy. Give myself a little top up there. Refresh our Purge the Wicked. Yeah, because I'm getting targeted big time.
Do not let the gates fall.
I'm going to give myself a shield, if I could. Oh, this is bad. This is bad. I'm being targeted by everything. I believe because... Is everybody here a melee? That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Everyone's a melee. Oh, come on. Oh, God. Isn't it always the way? Fucking melees. Gotta Purge the Wicked back on. Get those renews ticking. I get hit by absolutely everything. No big deal, though. We're fine. My shield still managed to absorb all of it. Purge the Wicked, refresh. Don't need any more cooldowns now. We'll throw out another Mindbender. You can see, even though I've been, like, pretty spam heavy, it's really not been a big deal. At all.
The blood of the unworthy will flow through.
Okay, so let's put some extra healing out. We can use a Light's Wrath now. We've not really used it. He's down. Cool. That was a lot of fun. I suppose. But still, we're going alright. We're doing alright here. You can see you can cope with everything. But you do have the option, of course, in these dungeons as to, like, what exactly is going to be the best way of dealing with this situation. And plus, it's always a little unpredictable in these scenarios as to exactly how many people will take what kind of damage. Oh my God, we've got fucking recount going. Scarda's on the go. Good times, all. And look at my damage. That's actually really interesting for me. Look at the damage I put out there. Insignificant? It was not. Okay, I can dispel that. There you go. Get Purge, friend. Yeah, I put nearly as much damage as Lenore. What's Lenore? The tank. That's alright. That's alright. Atonement on the tank. Refresh this atonement. Purge the Wicked on. Dude, you're spiking so hard. Stop. Another shield on. It's going to take me a week to try and top off this Demon Hunter. But we'll get there. Even with penance, his health is just going down. Oh, funny. Gotta find a way to drink it at some point. Sneaky drink, sneaky drink, sneaky drink. Back in the game. Paid suppression. Oh no, it's on cooldown. Shield spam. Dispel. They're studying the healing circle. That's good. Putting some longer term atonements on here. That's alright. That's on me. Instead of... I mean, this is sort of steady damage. You can see the difference in playstyle. It's like with steady damage, it can absolutely take our time. No need to be super rushy about anything. And we're finally getting topped off here. That's a nice pack for doing that. Although he spiked off that one mob. Wow, dude. Yeah, so, a little bit stressful for the start. We will get into some actual explanations as things ease up, because we're going into sort of boss territory now after we get through this trash. What a glorious instance, by the way. I know I haven't done a Halls of Valor overview yet. I will be doing one. It's a very fun dungeon, for sure. We're back to full mana, finally. Well, there again with that movement, so good. I'm using Schism, by the way. I should probably show my talents here. I'm using Schism, Body and Soul, Dominate Mind. Which is more than enough for these dungeons. Opposed to Wicked, obviously, so it just naturally spreads my Holy Fire around. You can see he's already got it, which is good. A plea on him. And all I'm doing is you're picking and choosing atonement targets based on what you think is going to happen. Now, as always, in 5-mans, you never know what the fuck is going to happen, man. You never know whether this guy's played a DK tank before, or whether he's just not used to managing the cooldowns, or whatever. He could just generally be a bad player. But ultimately, it's not too bad. This is okay. It might seem a little bit stressful. This is okay for Alpha. Right, I've got to pop a Power Infusion here to try and keep up with what is going to be an increasing level of damage as we go through this. Yeah, a lot of people standing in the crackles. We're going to have to do a little bit of burst here. Keep our friend on. Let's give him a pain suppression. Got to purge the Wicked ticking away. Divine Star through them. It won't do much, but it'll do something. You can see in this scenario, we'll let Atonement fall off. So nobody got any healing from that penance, which is weak sauce situation to be in. Make sure I'm good. Yep. Jesus Christ. Get out of the crackle, dude. You're studding damage. That crackle, though. Put a shield on him. He seems to be the one... Uh-oh. I just tab pulled some more mobs. Fade. Fade wasn't me. Rapture. Let's bubble, everyone. Purge. Dispel that. Oh, it was one mob. We're fine. Ah, okay. So now I kind of know that this our tank's first time here because he doesn't know you can't res in these dungeons, which is fine. Move out of the way so I don't AoE everybody. Refresh the atonement on everybody here. We're coming to the end of the fight. Cool. Ooh, stressful. Partly my fault, though. Well, I rescued it. The Fade, right? Nobody saw a thing. Nobody saw a thing. I'm pretty sure I can't res yet. We'll try. But res usually is bugged. It could have been fixed, and maybe he knows more than I do. And... Nope. Okay. This is the only downside to this class. It really is. Is just having to top people outside of the group. My God, I hope we're getting calm a bit now. We've used more cooldowns in this than I've had to use in a very long time doing these dungeons. But we apparently have cleared nearly all the trash. Where's our man? Let's get ready for the grip. Go on, Demon Hunter. Ulax the Fell Rush. It's coming. It's wonderful. As you'll notice then, some things that I mentioned during the preview to the Disc Priest then, is I'm not using Smite at all. There's like never an opportunity that it seems worthwhile to cast Smite under any circumstances. One, it's a sacrifice of DPS. And frankly, the damage that's put out so far in these dungeons is just too much for Smite to be worthwhile. And that's something you've just got to cope with in so many ways. You've absolutely got to deal with that. And see what's going on there. You just can't seemingly afford to be able to do it. Oh, we're pulling everything. Excellent. Okay. Well, that wasn't me. I still have aggro fade. Move out of that because that guy isn't going to move. Got another Purge of the Wicked going. Atonement on you. Reshield the tank. I would love to have to tell me exactly when shield comes off cooldown, because fuck me, is it not the biggest drawback? Because especially with penance resetting. Now, I don't want anyone to walk away from this and think Demon Hunters are squishy. They're not. They're really not. They're actually fine, but you have to be able to, you know, pool pain and such and all that kind of stuff. And if you're not doing that, it could generally work out kind of badly, because you spike like that, and that's where you should be able to self-heal, is what we should be seeing there. And that's how the Demon Hunter works. But it's alpha. For all we know, there's a lot of DPSs here not doing much of anything, and I'm not playing optimally by any means. Like, you need to be in so many different scenarios with the new model of Disc Priest that it's difficult you don't have any set in stone rules. You just have to experience things over and over and over and over again to really understand what's going on. Now, this boss is interesting. For those of you who've never seen this dungeon before, you're going to fight a big wolf here. The boss fight itself is not a big deal. But it's actually could be on either side. Now, some people don't get that. You have to follow his tracks. See his tracks on the floor? So this will tell you what side of the map he's going to be on. And you can see it's following that way. And you'll get into wars here. It happens all the time. People's like, no, because they've already done this dungeon once, and he was like over this side of the map. And now he's over here, and people just refuse to move, even though, like, you can actually see the guy. There he is. Oh, we're pulling all the trash and the buff. Now, the difference you're probably going to see here is on boss mobs. This is really cool, but also significantly easier. Oh, we got... Oh, cool. It's generally my experience that dealing with bosses and stuff is really no big deal. In comparison to everything else, especially with, like, Bloodlust. Let's put out an atonement on everyone and try and get some big Light's Wrath healing going here and a penance. Why are you taking so much damage, dude? Really? You shouldn't be. I'm going to have to give this guy a pain suppression. He's getting chewed. I'm going to rapture him. See the way this rapture works? Just spamming shield on one guy. So fucking cool. Love this. Alright, let's penance these guys. Put some long-term penances on. And keep up our damage. Refresh the Purge of the Wicked. Yeah, so that was the boss plus all the trash on the way to the boss. So, I just said that boss mobs tend to be much easier. They are. That was the boss plus everything else. So that's fine. And you can see, I want you to notice here that mana, even though I'm using everything, I'm using exactly the tools that I think are great for this. I would say this guy has done this dungeon before. Are they fighting? No, look good. They really are. But obviously, this if you're doing everything else, then it's a little bit tricky. Let's refresh these atonements. I only need short atonements. Where's he going? And he's just pulling the boss. Right, they must have some confidence in my healing, I guess. Let's pop a Mindbender preemptively. Now, this is going to have... fuck me. Dudes. Really? Yeah, well done. What am I supposed to do here, man? Much confidence in my healing. But it's alright, I got this. I can DPS this down, no problem. No, I'm not having responsibility for that. Alpha or not, fuck that noise. No way. Pull all the things. Those wolves have very nasty burst attacks. So pulling many wolves, yeah. Especially when you're spiking. That's not going to work. Well, I was hoping to spend a lot of time having kind of a chilled run. I've healed this dungeon probably 4 or 5 times without any issue at all. Like, totally breezing through it. But yeah. Sometimes it's a bit different. It's these warriors, man. Do we have what? We have an enhancement shaman and 2 warriors, 2 fury warriors. Well, that is a pretty mincy amount of DPS. That's gonna... I'm attempted to pull this guy back for being the ninja puller. I know who did it. It was you. We know. So, certainly tell me when would make this spec not trivial, but far more smooth. Because you've got to track these resets and your shield resets and stuff. There's no big indicator of when it's ready to go. And it does have a cooldown. And it's a short cooldown, you know, the 6-second cooldowns. Always nice to have some sort of notification for that. But other than that, I hope you can see the different ways I'm using these different spells. Already in this dungeon, we've used Rapture to spam heal one target, while simultaneously using it to heal an entire group and put atonements up and prepare for burst. So this boss fight, if I can talk a little bit about the boss fight before we get there, which hopefully I can. This boss fight has an ability where you'll, one, pick a person and chase them. Okay, you get this sense of blood. Hopefully that's not on me, so I can kind of show you that we can shield that person and give them a burst of speed. Either that or they'll just stand completely fucking still and we can life grip them. And also an ability where he's going to set up to AoE the whole party. And therefore we can prepare for that. Getting atonements, I'll be getting atonements up early in preparation for that, so I can just easily out-heal that. In theory. So what was that, 7 dogs? 7 wolf-woofs? Yeah. Maybe less, but still not good. Not good. Hopefully he's not going to go in and just do the same thing again. Oh, dude. What is with these guys? Really? Fade. I'm going to use fucking pain suppression on you, dude. I don't want to. I'm not going to do it. Oh my god, there's a dragon behind me. Why? Power infusion. Shield the tank. I can rescue this. Well, at least I got to show you, like, the worst case scenario. I'm gonna have to, I can't even pain suppression you, dude. You're fucked. What can I do here? Rapture. Rapture bubbles. Even that is not how healing it. Like, spamming bubbles isn't doing the job. Ah. Come on, baby. I got this. I fucking got this, baby. Ow! My beautiful blood elf face. Sorry. Come on. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. We're managing. Purge the wicked, refresh. Well, at least I got to save my pain suppression. Stop targeting me! Stop it! Stupid dragon. Get out of here. Alright, good. Good hustle, everybody. Alright. Putting Preacher through his paces. Trying to demonstrate the Disc Priest. Let's pull anyway, right? To the DPS out here. Fuck it. YOLO. Judging this party. 3 of us here. Good deal. Let's go. Where's the shaman? Is he AFK? Alright, cool. Oh, he's not moving on the map. He stood... Oh, no, he's moving. Oh, Shaman's AFK. Good, good. Alpha is alpha. Love it. Still following the same rules as live. AFK whenever possible, especially in a dungeon. He's moving. Hype. He was waiting for his friend, the warrior. Aww. Aww. We're going to see my artifact tree. Why not? So we picked up a few points along the way. I'm actually blocked now from getting any more, which is kind of sad. I need to get some relics, but I mean going out leveling in the open world is the only way to get anything. And leveling is this. Its DPS is decent. It's not the best. It's like tech DPS, but you know, it's decent. Right, we've got everybody. Hype. So hopefully I can be a bit demonstrative of the preemptive style now of the Disc Priest. So what's going to happen is someone's going to get sent, which I can counter with life grip and of course body and soul shields. Tank shouldn't take a tremendous amount of damage, hopefully, because it doesn't hurt very much. And then he's going to AoE everybody, which we're going to set up probably with either early atonements, or it doesn't last very long, so what I might go for is a power word radiance, and then channel in some penances and stuff. So let's see what happens. Shadow locked. So that is great, because now I can cast Smite. See how that doesn't really matter? Wonderful. So here's Scent of Blood. It's on Holy War. He's not moving. Let's pull him away. There you go. You're fine. Daddy's got you. Don't worry about it, buddy. Shield back on the tank. So now what we're setting up for is this. So we'll get ready for it. Where he jumps around. So we're just going to counter that with a power infusion, spam heal. And you see how we can counter that? No worries at all. Now let's put some long term. Now they've got a bleed effect. So now we transition into long term. Yeah? Oh, the shaman left the group. Boomerino. Because you can't replace people in dungeons. In dungeons. And he's got it again. Paid suppression on the DPS. Never nice to do, but there you go. Life is life. Let's put out our Mindbender. AoEing the group. Cool. Now they've got 2 stacks of the bleed, which is fine. So now we're going to follow that up with a Rapture. I'm going to shield everybody. See Mindbender there putting out some decent deeps for us. Make sure this atonement stays up on our man here. Is he running into it? That's pretty funny. Oh, he's pulled all the wolves. Of course. Why not, dude? Pull all the things. I don't mind. Yeah. Let's put a barrier on them. Try and help them. I don't think so, though. Oh, come on, man. Oh, such fun. Such fun. But I think I've demonstrated enough. I don't intend to stay in this dungeon, for not just to be a douche, but we can't actually replace that DPS, which means this is going to go super slow with our ultra brave warriors. And, well, the tank's left anyway. So no big deal. No big deal. A lot of fun. I hope you can see the playstyle there. I hope you can understand it. It wasn't the best I could do because absolutely none of that dungeon was predictable damage. The way it should be. It just wasn't, unfortunately. But what a load of fun anyway, and I hope that put a smile on your face. Take it easy, ladies and gents. The Disc Priest. Please, even if you don't want to be a healer or you don't want to do anything like that, just give this thing a fucking try because it's just so much fun. There's so much to think about. It'll open your eyes to things that you don't ordinarily see when you're playing easier classes, which I think is just well worth. All right, I'll see you again. Bye-bye.